And maybe we'll take this opportunity to switch into talking about Ops++. So I think you've prepared a slide there ready for us, right?
Yep, that's right. So I'll be your salesman for 2 minutes. Disclaimer, wasn't paid to do this. So very quickly, for other Ops++ users and other customers out there. So we've been using NetLine Ops++ for nearly 7 years now. So we cut over back in December 2014. The reason why we selected Ops++ was due to a number of sort of strengths, and I've listed a number of them on the screen here. So there's the very strong situational awareness feature for Ops++. So there's the warnings. So I think in all the ops control systems out there, when there's a problem, it'll give you a warning. But with Ops++, you actually get the different color codes. So the significant ones will come up as red, and then you've got the orange and the yellow ones. So the ops controllers can attend to, obviously, the most critical ones first, and then go through the other ones later on. There's also a very powerful feature in terms of the Gantt chart filtering, and also generating reports that are customized. So that's very useful during disruptions. If I want to say, during a typhoon here, I want to download a flight schedule, and I can just export it into an Excel file and pass it to my colleagues in other departments. There's also the additional features like OpsLink and Money Machine. OpsLink is a read-only sort of web browser for people outside of the OCC to actually access certain information of the flight schedule. So they don't actually get the full access. They can't make adjustments, but they can get bits and pieces of whatever they need. And the Money Machine is something that you can feed in the cost numbers from your airline, and before you make a decision, it's an additional sort of criteria that you look at, whether this decision is going to be a bit more costly than another one. And over here in Cathay Pacific, we've been actually using NetLine Sched, I think for nearly 10 years now. So the integration with NetLine Ops makes the schedule transfer from our planning people to the OCC people very seamless. There's also a database called NetLine Base that is shared by the two systems. So the two departments don't have to have their own database containing basically the same sort of information, like airport curfews, aircraft restrictions, etc. And we're also becoming a new customer for Lido Flight. They're going to cut over, I believe, next month. So we'll be using 3 NetLine or LSY products by the end of the year.
Yes, thank you very much there, Dennis. And the more the merrier as far as the products go. But I think that's a very wise move. I mean, you originally started with the Sched tool there, the schedule planning, and then added on the ops on top, and then it was almost a logical consequence with the flight planning. Also a tremendously powerful tool there. Anyway, enough of the salesmanship on my part. Now, I would suggest that if we look back at, I remember the days before Cathay actually migrated onto Ops++. Dennis, could you share with us, let's say, a little bit of what you had before and how working with Ops++ is so different to those earlier days?
I think back then it was a system design, I think back in the 90s. So the display obviously had the very 90s look, actually probably system was based on another system, and I was told that was actually before my time. It was basically originally a 70s design, so you can imagine the look just isn't very, 21st century. And also in terms of alerting, and I was an ops controller when I was using the old system, and I would always sort of get confused because they only had just the one warning on the flight bar, and I wouldn't know whether actually that was a misconnection, a passenger misconnection, or actually a curfew violation. So we had to spend more time just digging into the different flight bars to make sure we didn't actually make any major mistakes. So with Ops++ now, the feasibility warning list with all the different coloring just makes the controller's job a lot easier. So you don't miss. So you don't really want you don't want any red warnings on your screen, and it's just the situational awareness of our staff is a lot stronger these days.
Yeah, thanks very much. And I'd like to also reflect back on one thing that you said there with regards to the reporting that you, I mean, I remember walking through Cathay City and talking to you guys, and also the IT people were really keen on bringing in a system that's going to be able to generate useful reports for these hungry managers up above who just insist on a report for absolutely every incident and activity. How's that working?
Yeah. So the system has the feature for you to extract anything you want from the database. So you can do an initial filter first. So if I just want all the technical delays for the last few days or even for the last month, you can pre-select that and then just export it into an Excel file. It could just be the flight schedule for the next few days. So say if I've got a typhoon coming up to Hong Kong, I could just export all the flights into an Excel file and then give it to whoever needs it to do whatever they have to do. So that powerful feature, and it's you can just customize it depending on the needs at the time.
Yeah, great. So it's certainly serving its purpose there in that respect. So we've talked about where it came from, where it is now, and what about the future of operations control, Dennis? What's that looking like from your perspective?
Sure. So if I could just bring up my slide. Yes. So as Olivier and Thomas, mentioned at the introduction, so there's going to be a lot of reliance, a lot of focus on having new technology, things like the use of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and the term big data is talked about every day in a lot of industries. So, and I do believe that will help the people in OCC run the operation, look after the airline, and do things proactively to avoid major disruptions or to avoid disruptions sort of getting out of hand. But at the same time, I think the human element inside an OCC is just equally important. And I'll tell you why, especially after COVID, having people not sitting together actually creates a lot of problems. So for my team, for example, because of what might happen with if someone in the airline headquarters has COVID, a government response is actually very, very strict. So they will just take everybody to our quarantine camp for 21 days, and there's no debate on that. So we don't want to risk that and having all the OCC staff taken out of the building, and then the airline cannot keep running. So I've got half of my team relocated to our old Cathay Dragon office on the other side of the highway, and to communicate just within my ops control team when there are issues in the operation. It's difficult enough because I can't have the exact replica, the exact setup in the other building. One thing, for example, there's no usage of satellite phone calls, so they can't call our aircraft, and there's also no setup of VHF. So everything is done via half of the team in the main building, and that comms just makes it so difficult. And just now we had the typhoon disruption. We had to bring people from different departments into our meeting room to discuss it. I can't imagine doing this on, Zoom or Teams, because you just can't manage, because everyone wants to talk, and you just can't manage that. Just trying to, go around the virtual conference call, the added issues in terms of communication. So it's just great to have people in the same place, talking about the issue, trying to resolve it together. That element, I think, in the future will have to stay, because with disruptions in an airline, I don't think computer systems will be able to do it 100% for you. And my next point, I think, especially after COVID, airlines will want to be very careful on spending money. So we do want some sort of capability on predicting costs, and also the analytics capability, because we do sometimes want to look back on a disruption and whether we actually made any mistakes or anything that we could identify improvement opportunities that next time we'll be able to make our decisions better, or make a less costly decision, or do something a bit more efficient, so we don't sort of cause the amount of impact to our passengers and our resources next time. And I guess going back to my earlier point, something I want to maybe discuss, later on in our breakout sessions, AI versus HR, human intelligence in the OCC. I think AI will be very, very useful in a lot of the other parts of an airline business. So maybe, in terms of optimizing your aircraft utilization, all that sort of stuff. But inside the OCC environment, I'm not sure how AI can actually take over humans. I think some of my senior bosses would like to think that, well, actually with AI, people in the OCC will be making less mistakes, or I shouldn't say mistakes, but will be making better decisions. Sometimes, when we do, in hindsight, we think, well, we should have done something. We should have made that decision. And they tend to think that, well, maybe AI will be able to help us in that regard. But because we are dealing with changing circumstances, so I think the human intelligence part will probably be more important. I mean, you might argue it's just as important as AI, but I would think at this point in time, human intelligence is a bit more important than artificial intelligence, but I'm open to discussion.
Yeah, very good there, Dennis. Well, of course, without human intelligence, we wouldn't have had any artificial intelligence. And I think that that's, that goes through even with machine learning. When you get to deep learning, I think that is when humanity becomes possibly a little bit redundant. Now, I've got a question here that's come in on exactly that topic. Sure. Then, Dennis. We've got a question here asking how, and this is the combination of humans and artificial intelligence. You've got your operators, very human indeed. And how would you rate the willingness of the operations controllers to cooperate with potentially an AI assistant, for example, helping to train the agent? What about that?
I think, I mean, as long as you can sort of prove that, the AI assistant can think just as well as, my ops controllers here, and some of them who've been here for, over 20, 30 years. I'm pretty sure there's the initial reluctance to accept that, well, a computer is better than me because I've been here, 20, 30 years. But I think as time goes on, and if you can sort of demonstrate that actually, well, it can come up with better ideas, I think they will be convinced. And having said that, I mean, we look after 2 airlines here. We look after, passenger and freighter aircraft and a lot of different aircraft types, different configurations. So there's a lot of complexity in the way we manage Cathay Group's operation. But on the other hand, for an operator like, some of the biggest, low-cost carriers in Europe and America, I mean, I can't imagine ops controllers, having had a snowstorm, go past Europe, and you've got 300-400, single-aisle aircraft scattered all over the place. I think in that regard, AI will actually be a lot quicker and faster to replan your flight schedule and restart the operation, because I can't imagine just, a few guys trying to sort out, the flights for 300-400 aircraft. So I think depending on the airline nature, AI can certainly do a better job.
Wonderful, Dennis. Thank you so much for all of these extremely valuable insights, and also for your enthusiasm looking towards the session that you'll be participating in later on the Ops++ track. Yes, I actually had a sneak peek yesterday, and Andres is doing a great job there. It's certainly something to look forward to. And please, everybody also who's involved in these tracks, do your best to actively participate and contribute. In this community, the more you put in, the more you get out. Simple as that.
Thank you.
So Dennis, I would like to close now by saying my most deepest heartfelt thanks for you coming along today and speaking with us. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you again, seeing you again, and hopefully next year face-to-face here in Germany, if I don't make it out to Hong Kong before that.
Absolutely. Look, I think we're all looking forward to traveling again, and not having to come back and put up with hotel quarantine.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you very, very much, Dennis. And with this, I'm going to hand back to Julia.